Hi everybody, welcome to New Faculty Orientation and welcome to NKU. My name is Shannon Estep and I'm an instructional designer and distance learning coordinator out of the College of Education. I'd also like to welcome you to this session, which is on tips for teaching online. Now, whether you're preparing to teach online this fall semester or you're preparing for the possibility of teaching online, I'm hopeful that the tips that you will see on this document in front of you and what we'll talk about during this session will help. So like I said, you guys are looking at a document right here, and you can see that I have 4 tips here. And each of these kind of focus in on a different aspect of teaching online. So we'll talk about designing the environment, communicating with students, using audio and video, and finding tools to promote active student engagement in the online environment. So as we work through this document, I'll be showing you some examples and linking you to some tutorials to hopefully help expand the knowledge in these particular areas. So let's go ahead and dive in and get started talking about tips for teaching online. Okay, so to get started, let's start with the first tip. Make Canvas a strong learning environment. Now, hopefully by now you guys have had a chance to dive into Canvas and really get comfortable in that learning environment. And once you are at that level of being comfortable, we need to consider a few things I think that would make this a strong learning environment for your students. So let me go ahead and open up Canvas and we'll talk about these 4 things. Okay, here we are inside of one of my Canvas shells, and the first thing I want to mention is if you aren't yet comfortable in the Canvas environment, there is a help button down here on the lower left-hand corner once you're inside of Canvas. And here you'll find several guides and helpful pages to help you become more comfortable with Canvas. So one of the tips on our page was consider a tour of your course. Now, inside of Canvas, you have a good amount of flexibility in terms of what buttons are showing over here to the left and how you want your students to navigate through your course to go through content, complete assignments, and so on. So it's a good idea to take a video perhaps and show the students around your course, kind of like what you would do to make sure they are comfortable in a face-to-face class. You're going to do that in the Canvas environment. So don't be afraid to actually create a little tour where they will become comfortable not only with the Canvas shell in general, but specifically how yours is laid out. On your document, you guys will see that I have one example of how you could do this, but there are a whole host of ways you could do this. The second thing I have suggested here is consider an introduction of yourself. In an online environment, sometimes it's easy to feel disconnected from the students and from the students to you. So one way to bridge that gap is to allow an introduction of yourself. Now you can see here on my main page, I do have a video introduction of me. This is like a 2-minute video, and I have a link to this on your document you guys can take a look at, where I just explain both the course itself and I explain a little bit about me. It does allow you to kind of infuse your personality a little bit right away into that course and allow them to get to know you better. I also put this inside of Module 1 for me. I have an area inside of here where I have my instructor introduction as well as my Canvas overview. So of course there's no set thing on anything that has to be included in these, but I gave you again a couple of examples of what this might look like. But put your own personality into it and see what makes your course unique and tell them about it. The third thing I have on our bullet here is clear navigation. What I mean by that is, the first thing I would say is anything that's off to the left that you don't need, make sure you're hiding that from the students. So do you see how these have a little not visible to students icon on them? That's because I hid them. And you can actually do that under settings inside of Canvas. And the reason you want to do this is you want to streamline things for the student as much as possible. The last thing you want in an online course is for students to get bogged down by the navigation and distracted from the content that you're teaching them. So make sure that you're streamlining that process on the left. By the same token, when you lay out your content in your modules area, make sure you're consistent each week. And here's what I mean. If I click on modules, you can see I have inside of week 1 the basics. I have some headers I'm using called tutorials and lessons for this week. I have some pages. I have an assignment area. Let me show you a second week and show you that this is laid out very similarly to week 1. Okay, you can actually see 2 weeks on the screen right now. Week 4 and week 3, you can see that I use the same headers and the same general layout for each one. So in online learning, I would say consistency is a really important word. Make sure you're being consistent in the way that you're laying things out, and also the way that you have due dates laid out, things like that. Make sure you're being consistent from module to module. Okay, the last thing that I have under tips for teaching online, under the first topic of creating a strong learning environment, is to follow accessibility practices and universal design. This is really important. Accessibility is one of those things that kind of go hand in hand with teaching online. I want to show you a tool that we use at NKU here called Ally. And I think the easiest place to start with that is actually starting at the very beginning of my course. What I want you to see here is that I have these meters right next to any resource that I have posted in Canvas. And these will be a variety of colors, from red being very inaccessible to green being very accessible. Anytime you see these meters and you click on it, you will see if there is an issue with something. So let me move to a module where I know there's a couple of mistakes so I can show you how this will help us. Okay, so let me explain that, again, these meters will show you when there is an issue with any resource inside of your course. And by clicking directly on that meter, it will show you over here on the right, and again, this tool is called Ally, what the issue is. So for example, this is telling me that I have this document that I posted contains images that are missing a description. And this kind of gets into a whole bigger discussion on accessibility. And I actually have linked for you guys on your document an accessibility practices Zoom session that was done in the College of Education that will give you a deeper understanding of accessibility and how to make sure your resources are accessible. But I do want to make sure you understand that when you see these meters inside of Canvas, it means that there is something going on with one of those resources, and if you click on it, it will walk you through, or attempt to walk you through, how to fix it. This could be uploaded resources, or like this is an image right here. If I click here on this meter, it's telling me that this does not have a meaningful description and to go ahead and add one in here. So again, for a fuller picture of accessibility, please see that tutorial from your tips for teaching online document, and this will give you a much deeper understanding of it. But what I do want you to understand is make sure that you are designing your course in a way that is accessible to all. And that means adding in captions for pictures and table headers and things like that. So I want you to understand that when you see these icons, it means that Ally is trying to help you make your content more accessible. The other thing to note about Ally is you will always see this little black drop-down arrow on a page, and this actually allows the students or you to click on that resource and allow them to download it in alternative formats. So this will actually download it in a variety of options, including an audio version of it if they choose to. And that right there makes your documents or your resources much more accessible, just by allowing them some ability to take it in a variety of ways. So that was accessibility in a nutshell, but there's a whole lot more to it. But I want you guys to just understand big picture that it's important to design with accessibility in mind. Okay, gang, so we have worked through our first tip here about creating a strong learning environment in Canvas. The second tip here is making communication with students a priority. Again, when you're in the online environment, it is easy for the students or you to feel disconnected from each other. And one way to, again, bridge that gap is to make communication with them very intentional and very, I would say, frequent. So a couple of tips here. Timely responses to emails. Make sure that you are setting up a time that, or an expectation where they can expect when to hear back from you on those things. Check in with students throughout the week. There is no set time or set schedule for that. I can tell you in my class, when I release new content to them on Sundays, they always get an announcement from me in Canvas that is also emailed to them to let them know new content is available. They also get a reminder from me, a reminder announcement from me on Thursdays, Wednesdays or Thursdays of that week. So they hear from me twice through announcements and email. And they also hear from me, I'm going to pop down to this last bullet, they also hear from me from through a tool called Remind. And it allows me to send text message reminders to them as often as I would like. So I use it on Saturdays because it's the day before their assignments are due. And I'm going to show you this tool in just a second. But it allows me to kind of reach them in a way that they are very used to and very comfortable through text messaging. And again, I'll show you that tool in just a second. The third bullet here says provide meaningful feedback, and think about maybe doing that through audio or video. That does also give them a bridge to you and makes that communication between you two stronger. And I'll touch on that a little bit more in this next tip. But in general, I would say make communication with students intentional and consistent. So let me open up Remind and show you what this tool might be able to do for you. Okay, so here I am inside this tool called Remind. And Remind is a free tool. You can have up to 10 classes under the free account, and you can have 150 participants in each class. So for me, that's more than enough. So the idea behind this tool is that students opt into this on their cell phones. They can also do it through email if they choose to do it that way, but most do it through their cell phones. And it's a link where I invite them into this class, and they will then receive text message reminders from me whenever I send them out. I don't know their cell phone number and they don't know mine. This is all kind of behind the scenes, and it just pops up as a text message reminder to them on their phone when I push it out. So here's one of my favorite things about this tool is that I can actually schedule these reminder announcements ahead of time. So I tend to be a little type A about getting things ready at the beginning of the semester. So I actually schedule these at the beginning to be sent out throughout the semester. And that helps me to remain consistent so I don't forget to do it on a Saturday. And I also try to send them out at roughly the same time each Saturday for consistency. So you can see some of the things that I send to them. This one, sometimes I include images in my reminder, sometimes I don't. But this one is just their thanks for signing up. This is a reminder, what to do for tomorrow's assignment, and so on. I'll remind them, even if there's no assignment that week, I'll still check in and tell them what they should be doing that week in terms of going through content. So each of these you can see when they'll go out and at what time. Now, if you don't want to schedule ahead of time, you can always send a message at any time. At the bottom of the screen here, you can see I can message everyone in this class by clicking here. This is kind of my sample message. I can type in anything I want here. You can see I have 140 characters to work with, and I can also add a variety of other items to my message. I could upload a file. Maybe it's the syllabus that says, don't forget to go through this. Maybe it's an assignment rubric that says, here's how I'll be grading you. You can upload a photo or a video and a whole host of other things that can be included inside of here. These attachments usually take up about 23 or 24 of these characters, so just keep that in mind. And here's where you would schedule if you wanted to schedule them. Can a student text you back on these message threads? They absolutely can. And you can have a private message with them if you wanted to. Occasionally I'll have a student text me back, not often. How effective is this? Well, students still miss assignments, but I will say I get somewhere between 60 and probably 70, maybe a little bit less, % of the students will sign up for this. So it is optional for them, but it is another way to stay connected and to make sure that they are getting that communication from me on a consistent basis. So let's head back to our document again. Okay, we just finished up with making communication with students a priority, and this link right here is a tutorial. This one I didn't create, but it is just an overview of Remind if you want to jump in and learn a little bit more about it. I mentioned this as I was going through accessibility. That was that Zoom session that we did in the College of Education, which dives deeper into accessibility, so if you want to take a look at that as well. The third tip here is consider using audio and video for delivery or for student feedback. This student feedback link here is actually a tutorial, or rather a video that I created on how you can do that effectively in Canvas. I talk about a couple ways to do it within the Canvas environment, and then I actually talk about a couple of these tools that you can use to provide student feedback as well. So this will dive deeper into this topic for you. But I want to mention these 4 tools here and what they might be able to do for you in your teaching. Kaltura is our university supported screencasting tool. And what I mean by screencasting is pretty much exactly what I'm doing right here. I have something on my screen and I'm lending my voice to it. So Kaltura will allow you to do that and embed it directly into Canvas. By clicking on this link, you'll be taken to a tutorial I created on how to do that inside of Canvas. So I'm going to give you just a big picture. I'll show you what it looks like in Canvas. But for more details, this tutorial linked right here will walk you through step by step how to get started with Kaltura and then how to embed it into your Canvas course. But let me show you what Kaltura is, just big picture. Okay, so here I am inside of Canvas again, and I clicked on the area that says Kaltura My Media. Now, if you don't see that, you may have to turn it on under Settings. But once you do, you will see this over on your left. This is the area where all of your videos that you have created or added to your courses will be listed. So when I click on this, you can see here are all the little screencast recordings that I have created. And again, that tutorial I mentioned will walk you through this. But basically, I chose to add a new, and then I chose to add a Kaltura capture. And these are the results of that. These are all of my videos that I can then add into Canvas under modules or under assignments, anywhere. So let me show you how that would look to the student. So here I'm under a module and I'm on a page and I have dumped a Kaltura video that I recorded onto a page, and that will create a playable video for students directly into your Canvas page. So if I click play here,
the test to show you how to navigate to the NKU homepage, choose Contact Us, and be able to find all the information.
Okay, you get the idea. Students can make this bigger if they want to. You might have also noticed the closed captioning at the bottom here. All of the Kaltura videos are automatically closed captioned, which is great. That goes a long way towards accessibility for students. But you may have to edit these a little bit if you noticed it didn't quite get NKU correct. So I will show you in that video how to correct closed captions as well. But I want you to just see what it can do for you and how it will look to the student. This is a really handy tool that, again, is supported by NKU and allows you to create screen captures to then display to the student. A lot of faculty will use this to talk over a PowerPoint and be able to teach their content, but with their voice instead of just posting a PowerPoint. Adding your voice to it, again, goes a long way in building those relationships with students, allowing them to hear from you, but also getting across the content in a more meaningful and probably more in-depth way than just a PowerPoint. So I'd really encourage you to add your voice to your content and post it for students in some way in Canvas so that they can maybe go deeper into that content with you and, again, hear from you as well. So this is Kaltura. Let me go back to our document. Okay, as a reminder, we just talked about Kaltura, and this link right here will walk you through a more in-depth tutorial on Kaltura so you can kind of see the step-by-step on how to create a video. I just want to mention these other 3 tools because I have found them helpful for creating screen captures in kind of different ways. Loom and Screencastify are both free recorders that I have found helpful to create student feedback for student assignments or projects they've worked on. And I go into more detail about that in this tutorial where I walk through how each of these work and I show you kind of how they can be used to give feedback. I particularly like Loom because they do offer a free pro version, meaning you get some editing tools for any educator. And I'll talk about that in that tutorial, which you can get to by clicking directly on this one. We'll tell you obviously about Loom. And this link will walk you through a tutorial on Screencastify. Now, I throw this last one in here only because every once in a while someone will say, well, I really want a lot of robust editing tools. Do you have a screencast tool that has a lot of nuts and bolts to it? And this last bullet is that. Screencast-O-Matic is really great, and it's not super expensive, and it does allow you to dive pretty deeply into a lot of editing pieces with your video once you've recorded it. So the bottom line to this section here is, don't be afraid to use audio and video for both your delivery of content and when you are giving student feedback. I think in an online environment, those pieces can add a lot to the course that you're teaching. So each of these will give you a different tutorial on the different topics under this umbrella. This last section, find tools to promote active student engagement. So I get this question a lot. You know, what can I do? What tools can I put into Canvas to make the content a little more engaging, to help the students connect to each other more, to discuss things in maybe a deeper way, or to just kind of try something different than just standard Canvas? All three of these tools will do just that for you. So I'll show you a demonstration of all three, but I want to point out that each of these have a deeper tutorial if you want to learn more about it by clicking directly on to each of these, and I'll go into much more detail about FlipGrid, about Padlet, and about Voicethread. So let's start with FlipGrid, and I'll show you just an overview as to what this tool can do for you. Okay, you guys, FlipGrid. In a nutshell, FlipGrid is a video discussion area where students can record videos of themselves replying to a topic of your choice that you have set up, and they can reply to each other as well. They can also actually use a whiteboard to demonstrate knowledge understanding. They can actually also record their own screens to show you or demonstrate something that they want to show you. So this is a really powerful tool that will allow for video discussions amongst you and the students and amongst each other as well. FlipGrid is entirely free, and it will also integrate pretty well into Canvas. And again, that deeper tutorial that I mentioned will go into that in more detail for you. But here is just, I wanted to show you kind of what it looks like. I am under a grid. So a grid is a folder of topics, and I am under my own class that I teach, and this is my topic that I'm showing you guys, class introductions. So this is an example of something I have them do at the beginning of the semester where they introduce themselves and they tell me one example of a way they've seen technology used in the classroom, as well as one technology tool they'd like to learn more about. So I give them some instructions here. This is a video of me explaining the assignment to them. I find this to be really helpful. It's called a topic focus. Not only does it allow them to hear from me, but it also models for them kind of what I'm looking for, because I'll answer the questions as well. So on the student side, what they will see is a big green plus button at the bottom here, and they click on that plus, and then they are able to record themselves answering the questions. Now, they can do this on any device. It'll work great on a laptop or a desktop, and there's also a mobile device for this that most of my students typically end up using that. But I want to encourage you to look deeper into FlipGrid by watching that other tutorial if this is something that you think would work for your class. I really think it opens up the idea of a class discussion in a different way when you're asking them to record themselves, giving their responses. So again, you can do that a straight recording. They can also do a whiteboard, or they can record their screen. I also talk in that tutorial about how to integrate it back into Canvas if you choose to do that. So what's great about this is once it is embedded back into Canvas, it will allow you to grade it inside a Canvas using the speed grader, which will save you some time. So FlipGrid is a really handy tool for those video discussions. Let me show you the next tool. Okay, you guys, another way that you could allow students to interact with each other and collect resources that they are adding to the discussion is using a tool called Padlet. And that's this. This is also another free tool that you can use to create up to 3 Padlets, and students can then use these Padlets to talk to each other or collect resources. So in this example I have in front of you, I have a variety of ways that content can be collected. This is just an example of a note. You can actually record a video directly onto your Padlet. You can upload an image. You can add in an image taken from Padlet using a webcam. You can add in URLs. You can add in audio files, documents, PDFs, and so on. To add any content to a Padlet, literally you double click right on the Padlet itself. You can add in a title. My description of my item, and then this is the great part. If you click these three dots, here are all the ways that you can add content into this Padlet. You can upload something, you can link something, and so on. You can see what all of our options are. This allows for a good variety of ways for students to bring in information together. So for example, in my class, one of the things I have had students do, I've used this in a couple ways. One thing I had them do was we were talking about social media in education, and they had to go out and find a social media outlet to share with their fellow students. So they could either find someone to follow on Twitter, they could find a helpful blog that's being written, or they could find a Facebook group on their subject area. And then they all collected them and put them all inside of this area where we had a great collection of social media for following educators. The other way I've used it is last semester I had my students create a survival guide. So they had to come on and either video themselves, upload an audio of themselves, or they could just type in notes to next semester students on how to do well in this class. And then at the beginning of next semester, I will have those new students watch these. So that's just a couple of examples of how you might be able to use it. One great thing about Padlet that I really like is your ability to share this in a variety of ways. What I typically do is I will save it down as a PDF, and then I can share that back out onto Canvas for students to then hold on to those resources. So let's say you're having them to collect articles on a topic of your choice, and they're all links inside of here. You want them to be able to hold on to that. So you might save it as a PDF and then share it out to them within an appropriate area inside of Canvas. So I really like Padlet for its ease of use and its ability to allow for a lot of different ways, a lot of different multimedia and options for students to express their thoughts. Again, Padlet, you get up to 3 Padlets free and you can certainly reuse them. All right, let me show you the third tool. Okay, the last tool I'm going to show you is a tool called Voicethread, and this is meant to be a discussion area where you can also add in a lot of content for students to look at. I'm showing you Voicethread on the main page, but this one is integrated into Canvas, and in that tutorial I mentioned to you that goes deeper, I'll walk you through that process. But I want to just show it to you here because I think you'll be able to see it a little better here. So these are all, I'm going to use the word presentations that have been uploaded here. And once you upload it, it invites conversation and discussion amongst students. So let me show you one example. Okay, so here is one Voicethread presentation that I have as an example. Once you upload your presentation, and think presentation, think anything, PowerPoint slides, images, a video, anything like that that you could upload, a PDF can be uploaded, you can comment on. So you can see here, I have added my comment to this slide as the instructor, and that's pretty typical. The first comments that might be added in might be from you to explain what to do on this slide. And then you can see I have a line here and then a circle. I replied to that comment. So I can see that there's been a reply to my comment. Now, of course, it was myself, but it would be individual students that are replying to each other. When a student makes a comment on one of your pages, they come down here and they click on this plus button, and you can see that there is a variety of ways to add your comment. This is a text comment. This is actually, they can phone in a comment. It'll record their voice via phone and it'll be added to this thread. You can add your audio, which is what I had done over here, or you can add a webcam and record yourself so they can actually see you talking. You can also upload an audio file if you recorded it in on a different device or in a different program, say their phone, something like that. So I'm just going to play this for just a second so you can see what it's going to do for us.
Hey guys, in this Voicethread, we're going to spend a little time looking at a few technology-related current items. So as you get to a slide and you complete that slide, make sure you leave a comment.
Okay, so you get the idea. This playhead down here will actually play continuously all of these if you let it. So this was just an image. If I click on the right here, this is actually a video that they would watch, and they can comment within that video or at a specific spot in that video. So this was just a URL from YouTube that I added in. So they would watch this video and they would comment on it. And again, this is open to all the students to do as they get to this slide. This is an image that they could also comment on. And lastly, I have here a PDF that is an article I wanted them to take a look at. So the idea here is that you could speak yourself. Maybe you have a PowerPoint and you're going to speak and give content information over, say, the first 4 slides. And then maybe on the 5th slide, it's an image that says, let's discuss. And so you stop for a minute and you would discuss, much like you would do in a face-to-face classroom, but you're doing it online. So this is a little bit different than just putting out a video of you talking about all the content. In this, using this tool, you would talk for a while yourself, and then you would invite discussion among the class for them to talk to you and to each other. So Voicethread is really great about being able to kind of combine the idea of giving a lecture and class discussion, not exactly at the same time, but within the same presentation. So Voicethread can be powerful, and the great thing about Voicethread too is that we have a license to it here at NKU, and it's loaded directly into Canvas where you can start using it right away. So again, if you are interested in that and you think that this tool might be a helpful one for you, I'd encourage you to take a look at that tutorial that I mentioned back on that document we were working through. And speaking of, let's go back to that and wrap up. All right, here we are back at that document to wrap things up. We just finished talking about 3 tools that might help promote active student engagement, again, both with you and each other. All 3 of these, as a reminder, will allow you to take a look at tutorials that will dive deeper into this. But I hope that this piece gave you an idea as to what those tools will do, and then you can decide which ones you want to get into in more detail. Okay, to wrap up, this session was all about tips for teaching online. I hope by us going through these 4 categories, you were able to get a little bit of some ideas as well as some foundational knowledge about teaching in the online environment. It's such a big topic that we could have spent a whole session talking about any number of these, but my hope is that it gave you some ideas that you can take into your own classes. The last thing I want to mention is at the bottom here is my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out if I can answer any questions for you. So again, welcome and good luck with the fall semester.